Chief Justice John Roberts walked into that hearing thinking he'd seen it all, until Representative Jasmine Crockett turned his own words against him and left the room speechless. There was a stillness in room 201 to 40, one of the Rayburn House office building. Not the kind that brings peace, but the kind that comes just before something sharp cuts through the air. On paper, it was just another hearing, but everyone there could feel that something was about to happen. Seated at the witness table in a navy suit that surely cost more than a month's salary for most in the room, Roberts looked composed, collected, and, some would say, confident to a fault. He'd testified before Congress several times, knew how to speak just enough, control the tempo, and stay above the fray. Yet this hearing was different. It wasn't about broad constitutional theory, but judicial ethics, impartiality, undisclosed gifts, connections that never quite made it into disclosures. People were watching, cameras rolled. Gone was the shield of the robe. Committee members lobbed softballs, struck careful balances. Never too accusatory, never too weak, until it was finally Jasmine Crockett's turn. Representative Crockett of Texas adjusted the mic, leaned forward slightly, and spoke so quietly that her tone alone demanded attention. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman." Some in the room barely looked up. They knew her as a former public defender, new to Congress, but sharp-tongued on the floor. Across from the highest judicial authority in the country, she pressed, "You've said in past statements that the court follows a strict standard of ethical conduct even without an official code. Is that correct?" Roberts clasped his hands, voice calm. "That is correct, Congresswoman." She flipped a page and asked why there was no disclosure about Justice Merritt's relationship with a political donor whose case came before the court last year. Heads turned, cameras clicked. Roberts adjusted his tie, expression unreadable. "I'm not at liberty to comment on ongoing ethical reviews or specifics related to individual justices." Crockett nodded, eyes steady. "But you can speak on precedent, correct?" She reminded him that the Supreme Court uses the appearance of impropriety as a benchmark, not just about whether something is technically wrong, but whether the public has reason to believe it might be. He shifted slightly. "The appearance standard has guided many institutions, yes." She didn't wait. "Then wouldn't failing to disclose a close relationship with someone who financially benefits look improper?" The room fell silent. Roberts countered lightly, "Congresswoman, I believe we're getting into hypotheticals." She responded calmly, "I'm quoting facts from your own court's financial records." Roberts straightened in his chair, cool eyes scanning her. She quoted directly from disclosure forms and asked whether he personally reviewed them to ensure transparency. "Each justice is responsible for their own disclosures," he replied. She sat back, let the silence do the work, and said, "Interesting. Because if you're just checking your own work, you're not being held accountable." A staffer exhaled, half laughing in disbelief. Trying to redirect, Roberts emphasized judicial independence from political pressure. Crockett interrupted, "We're not telling you how to rule. We're asking why certain patterns keep showing up unchecked." Roberts opened his mouth, but she held up a hand, framing her next question with precision. She spent years in Texas criminal courtrooms watching judges lecture young men about taking responsibility, about how even the appearance of dishonesty could ruin lives. "Forgive me if I don't buy that the nation's highest court can't be held to a similar standard," she said. Roberts acknowledged they took concerns seriously through internal reviews, but she cut in, "You have no binding code, and the only review comes from inside the house. That's like asking a fox to file a security report on the henhouse." A murmur ran through the back. Reporters leaned forward. She pinned him down. He inhaled sharply, fingers tightening on the table's edge, his measured answers now tinged with awareness. "The court is not above criticism," he said, reminding her that respect between co-equal branches was essential. Crockett looked down, then up, eyes flickering with frustration. "Respect without honesty is just decoration, and the people who elected me didn't send me here to admire your robe. They sent me to ask why the rules seem different depending on who wears it." For the first time, Roberts truly saw who sat across from him. not a freshman congresswoman, but someone prepared to knock down every wall of technicality. She slid forward another page and asked about Dalton versus Mason County, a Fifth Circuit case on judicial recusal in 2009. Roberts recalled it vaguely. She corrected him. That judge failed to recuse despite indirect financial ties, and appearance alone was grounds for removal. Then she cited Justice Harlan's participation last year in Macon versus Delta Rail, where his longtime friend stood to gain significantly. No recusal, no explanation, and a 5-4 ruling. The room gasped. A pen clattered to the floor. Roberts leaned into the mic. "Your language is inflammatory." She replied evenly, "And your silence has been even worse." She told the story of Carla Jennings, a single mother in her district denied financial aid because a clerical error made her look like she owed taxes. She appealed to a federal court, only to be told, "Tough luck." Meanwhile, billionaires with private ties to justices can get cases heard, argued, and ruled on within months. Roberts's hands folded too tightly. He admitted the court must make difficult case selection decisions, but that does not imply favoritism. Crockett pressed again. "Does perception matter?" He nodded quietly. "Of course." She leaned in. "Then start caring more about what people see. Right now, they're not seeing justice. They're seeing power protecting itself." Even the committee chair paused, unsure how to follow what she'd just done. She closed her folder briefly and spoke quietly, reflective, personal. Growing up in St. Louis, an old judge told her, "A courtroom is only as honest as the people brave enough to challenge it." She thought about that often. Silence carried her words like stones through glass. Roberts adjusted his chair but remained silent, his confidence met, finally, by someone who didn't treat it like something sacred. Across the room, Representative Leonard Franks murmured, "Damn." It wasn't policy or debate, it was respect. The chairman thanked her for her line of questioning, cautious not to rush on. Roberts reached for his water glass. His hand trembled just enough for her to catch it. She looked him in the eye. "You don't have to agree with me, Chief Justice."
"But you heard me."
"That's all I came for." No gloating, just truth delivered without apology. Other members questioned afterward, but the energy had shifted. Questions sounded less performative, more focused, and no one wanted to be the one cleaning up the blow she'd just dealt. Roberts's responses became shorter, less theoretical, his charm tucked away. Outside, clips of her exchange spread across social media like wildfire. In a coffee shop near the Capitol, a barista replayed her lines. In a Dallas classroom, a young black girl asked, "Is she a lawyer?" Across the nation, people who had stopped trusting the system felt something they hadn't in years. Representation that didn't look like compromise. Inside room 201-41, Roberts looked at Crockett again, not with superiority, but recognition. She wasn't the future. She was the now. As the hearing continued, she sat quietly, stillness rather than smirks or side comments. About 30 minutes later, the chairman announced a brief recess. Journalists and staffers rushed to file pieces. Roberts stood, glanced back at her, and in a lower voice said, "Your district is fortunate to have you." She looked up and simply replied, "I know," as he gave a small, human nod and left the room quieter than he'd entered. When a law student from Missouri approached afterward, blazer 2 sizes too big, she thanked Crockett for speaking to them like they're not above you. Crockett smiled, not staged, just enough. They're not. She picked up her notes and walked out without another word. By prime time that night, the exchange wasn't defined by its clash, but by its calm deliberation, how Crockett hadn't just won an argument, but taught a class. Commentators framed it as a challenge to the status quo or grandstanding, but those who listened felt clarity. Sacred things need questioning, and unchecked power is erosion. Perhaps the discomfort in that hearing room was exactly what justice needed. Real change doesn't always roar. Sometimes it enters quietly, with one voice that doesn't flinch when someone powerful tries to shut it down. If someone like Jasmine Crockett could sit across from the Chief Justice and speak truth, maybe more people could do the same in their own lives, in their towns, at their jobs, in their homes. Moments like these don't just belong to those in the room. They belong to us all. If this story moved you, hit subscribe because there's more where this came from, and we're only getting started.